Okay, so we're back to the second part of the basics here in Illustrator, and we're going to continue on creating our boombox here. And before I do that, I'm just going to save this. I'm just going to go File, Save As. And I'll find the location for it here. Excuse me. And inside the Illustrator folder, and just resources here. And I'm just going to call this boombox. I think what I'll do is I'm going to create a small little shape here that I can add a couple layers here to the speaker. Let's see here. So I'm just going to use the pen tool actually, so I can just create the exact shape that I want. And it's going to be a very subtle shape. Let's go right here. Second here. Something like that. And I'm just going to change the color of this. Don't need a stroke. Let's take the stroke off. And let's change this to a shade of gray. Let's try that one. Well, my purpose here is going to be, these are going to stand as slivers underneath this area here. Now, what we can also do too is we can affect the layer stack in Illustrator as well, okay? We can arrange items so that they're underneath other items, okay? The way that we do this is we hold down the command option and we hit the back squiggly bracket, okay? The back squiggly bracket that I'm referring to is the key right to the right side of the P key, okay? So the P key on your keyboard, right to the direct right of that will be one of the squiggly brackets. And I don't know the official name on the squiggly bracket. I'm sorry for that. But yeah, as you can see, when I did that, it moves it behind the circle. If I move it to the right side, it moves it forward again, okay? If I keep going backwards here, it can go all the way to the back, or it can be all the way to the front. But I'm going to leave it right here. I'm just going to see how that looks. I do need to make it a little bit smaller, so I'm going to hold down Shift and Command. And actually, I'm just going to drag this down a little bit, like so. Let's move it down a tiny bit here. And that's about the shape that I need it to be, okay? Now I'm going to zoom in because we want this to be exact. And I don't think it's there yet. You can use your hand tool, similar to Photoshop, to drag across your screen. Now notice that these segments here aren't quite on the same angle as the line going across, as the same proportion of arc. Okay? And we're talking about this corner and this corner. So what I'm going to do, use my direct selection tool, hover over this anchor point, and I'm going to shift click on this one so that both are selected. And I'm just going to go up a little bit. See that? And let's just go Command Z there. Reason being is that I'm going to see what happens if I adjust one of these at a time. Now if I click on one, notice that we can have this handle here, okay? This handle, if we click and drag this, will actually change the degree of the arc. See that? Now if I go like that, this is much more closely to the arc that we need. Now if I do the same thing with this side, just undo that, click the wrong thing here. Let's just click here, and I'm going to click on this handle just to drag that up slightly. Let's see how that looks there now. Much more closely, okay? I'm just going to zoom back out here. Now what I can also do is for this segment, I can bring it under this this circular line that we created here. This circular stroke that doesn't have a fill. So I'm going to do that. Click here. Command. So this is arranged to the back. This is Command and the left squiggly bracket. And let's see here. That did the trick. So I'm going to click here now, and I'm going to make another section of this. Okay. I'm going to go right click and copy. Or actually, I can just click on it. Go Command C, then Command V. And I'm going to hover just outside this box here and rotate it like so. And move it down here. I'll make sure it's right through the center here. Just zoom in a bit. As you can see, it's not quite where it needs to be. Right there is where it needs to be. And I'm going to arrange it so that it's behind that small black circle, kind of the middle of our speaker. Okay, so that's looking to be about how I need it. Now, I noticed that this is not quite far enough arranged back. So Command and squiggly bracket, there we go. Now it's behind that gray line, okay? So that's about how I want my speaker to look. Now what I can do is I can duplicate this, okay? So before I duplicate this, I need to group it, okay? So what I'm going to do is take my main selection tool, direct select, highlight over everything. Everything's highlighted, but we don't want that, the base part of our boombox. So I'm going to shift click on that. So now all we're left with is just the overall speaker, okay? You can either right click here and go group, or you can also go Command G. Command G is a shortcut for group, and that will be similar in other programs such as Adobe InDesign as well. Command G will be for group. Control G if you're on PC, of course. And let's zoom back out. And I'm just going to move all this over a little bit here now. I'm just going to use my arrow keys for this. Let's see. I think that's about where we're going to need it. We'll see how the other wheel works out here now. Actually, we need to come back a little bit. If I need to make this a little bit smaller, I can, of course. So now, when I move this, it's all in one piece. See that? Just going to undo that. So now, I'm going to click here, Command C, Command V, paste it, and I'm going to drag it over here. First of all, I'll make sure that it's aligned here. There are many different ways that we can check this, of course, and we'll do all those checks. Now, these aren't aligned. As you can see, it's still very much off, right? So I'm going to click and drag this down, and now this is saying intersect. Let's see how it looks now. As you can see, it's still a little bit off there. There we go. It's aligned vertically. Now, is it in the right spot going from side to side here? Here's one quick way you could check. I could just quickly draw a shape. I could start from the edge of here and Go to the edge of here. Now, as you can see, that's not going to be overly accurate though, because we have an item on top of that. So what I could do is I could take that whole speaker and bring it behind my base. Okay. So I'm going to try that again here now. So I'm going to start from here and draw it right to that line here. Okay. Now I know that this piece here goes exactly from the start of this speaker, the outside of the speaker, to the outside part of the base on this side. See that? Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to drag that over here. Just leave it there for now because I'm going to have to do the same thing with this. And let's arrange it so that it's behind the base. And let's drag it over. As you can see, it's not quite the same there. So this actually needs to come in a few spaces. Let's try it again. So I'm using this little block as a quick ruler, basically. Okay? And right there. Looks accurate there now. I might bring it in one more space. Let's try it one more time. And of course, if I needed to be spot on there now. If I needed to be crucially exact, I could zoom in one more and really make sure that it's exactly where it needs to be. But it's very, very close here if it's off, even at the slightest. Okay, so let's move this back out now to arrange that to bring to the forward, bring to the front, sorry. And let's bring this one forward as well. So now those two speakers should be exactly where they need to be, and they are. Okay, guys, so I'm just going to move this back in the center here now. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make a handle here. Let's see. Trying to decide now what shape I want to go. I could draw this with a pen tool, but I'm trying to figure out if a shape is going to make this just as accurate. I believe it's possible. Tell you what, for now I will draw this. I don't want to go with an advanced option right now. So I'm going to click here. Before I do that, I'm just going to connect this and get rid of that because I'm going to give myself some space here. So delete all of that, drag all of this, and just move it down. Oh, by the way, before, there's one other thing that I needed to do here. I wanted this piece here to face inwards. Instead of changing this piece, what I can do, because everything else is got exact symmetry except for this little piece here, this little speaker element that hangs off to the right here, I can just flip horizontally, and now it's pointing inwards, and that's the way I wanted it to look originally. Okay, so this is one of those scenarios, specific scenarios where using that option just to make that small change would work. Okay. Now I'm going to drag all this and just move it down to right here, and let's move it over a bit. It's not quite centered there, and it's good there now. Okay, so I'm going to draw the handle here. And to make this exact, I'm just going to draw half the handle. Let's go right here. and option, oh, sorry, no, don't need to use the option. Click and drag from my arc. Let's just see how this piece looks. Not bad. Symmetry looks fairly strong overall. Now I can just kind of click on different anchor points to see how I can look if I change it up a little bit. Let's see. Just going to see how this is looked at. It looks if I fill it in as well. I'm going to use a fill of maybe a dark gray here. Let's go with that color. I'm going to straighten up a few of these segments a little bit. And I'm just moving these slightly so that the segments look a little bit more exact, I guess you could say. I think what I'll do is I might try to make the top part here a little bit thicker. So I'm just going to click on this anchor point and shift click over to this anchor point so that both of these are highlighted, and just move it down a little bit. See what I'm doing there? Now notice that this area changes completely. I'm just kind of experimenting with it here. And I think this could be effective. I like this little arc in the corners. Just gives it a little bit more of an edgy feel to the handle of our boombox, basically. Okay. What I'm going to do is take the stroke off as well. Don't need a stroke there. And let's see. Now I'm going to say that that's the shape that we want it. This is how we want it to look. And before I do that, before I duplicate it, I'm just going to move it into place and see what kind of space we're working with. I think what I'll do is I'm going to extend it over a little bit. Now notice if I extend it like this, I'm just dragging over. Notice it changes the shape. Okay. Now we won't always necessarily want it to be that way. Now for this example, it works for the most part, but if I didn't want to do that and I just wanted to actually extend the shape going across here without affecting any of this area and just affecting this area, what I do is go undo that first of all to right there. Use my sub-select and just shift click on both of these anchor points, okay? If I change these now, notice I'm extending that shape across, but I'm not affecting this area, okay? This makes it very specific. And I believe that's about the shape that I want there now. So click here with my direct select tool, Command C, Command V, and I'm going to flip this horizontal. And these don't quite match up yet. Here we go. Nope. Perfect. Now notice they're not quite in place yet. Now I'm going to select both of these two items and I'm going to group. Command G. Now I'll move these where they need to be. Let's go about right there. And I'm going to set the base color for this back piece here now. This is going to be a lighter gray. The reason I'm doing that here now is I can hide the ends of this handle behind our actual base. I'm going to try that color. We'll see how it works out. We can always adjust it later on if we need to. And I'm going to move this behind, Command and back squiggly bracket till it's in the right area. There we go. Now let's come up with an alignment strategy for this handle. Let's say that the middle of that handle can go through the middle of that circle. That looks fairly accurate right there, not quite centered. Let's try it on this side. Yeah, that handle is basically exactly where it needs to be. I'm fine with that. And guys, I'm just going to save that for a second. So now what we're going to need to do is create some buttons. Okay, so we're off to a great start here with this boombox, but now we need to create some buttons. Just be 1 second here. Let's see. I'm trying to picture how a stereo looks. I think what I'll do is I'll create one bar going across here first of all. So I'm going to take this shape here. Now I could go around it with this, and I think I will go around it. Let's see how we can make this look. And I'm just going to create a shape going across here. And I'm going to redo that. So what I'm going to do is have an alignment strategy. I'm going to start off with that piece centered in the middle of that circle, okay? And extend across till it's centered in the middle of that circle. See that? So that gives us an alignment strategy. Now I don't want these rounded corners to be quite that beveled, so I'm going to click that anchor point, sub-select tool ray, shift click on this anchor point. Let's just move it over a bit. So that's 4 spaces. So click on this one, shift click onto this one, and 4 in the other direction. There we go. And that's about how I want it to look there. Let's see, move that up a little bit more. And I'm going to try a stroke on this. Let's go with another shade of gray here. Let's try this one. That's the same color that we have basically. Let's try this. Not going to be very noticeable. Just going to see what happens if I go with the lightest shade of gray. Yeah, that stands out. We can see a little bit of stroke there. Now, I'll be honest, I'm going to completely make a guess at how the AM and FM timeline looks on one of the old radios. I'm not going to look up a picture. I'm going to challenge myself and see how close I can come to that. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to create a series of lines, okay? These lines are going to be gray inside here. So instead of placing them right on here right now, I'm just going to create for myself a little bit of a test area. So I'm going to put it up here. Now this would be another great use for a second artboard as well, is that you can create a second artboard just completely for the purpose of testing out particular graphics. For example, these little lines that I'm going to place inside this area here are going to have a very light gray color, but I don't want to place them on the white. I won't be able to see them while I'm creating them. So I'm going to create them on top of this area up here. Okay, that's my reason for this piece of really scrap. It's a scrap graphic. Okay. Okay, so just gonna make sure I click off of that first, and I'm going to create a little line here. This is going to have the light gray color to it. I'm going to go with that color again. Bring that in here. Now I'm going to zoom in a bit. And zoom in more because I'm going to make this thinner. different ways you could do this, but for speed wise, this is the strategy I would suggest. Basically anything that you adjust as well can be adjusted via value as well, but this is the quickest way for this particular scenario. Let's try that. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to duplicate that, just move it over, and I'm going to make that section shorter. Like so. And just to see scale here, just see how that looks. And I'm going to select both of these now, Command C, Command V, and let's see how they look as more of an expanded set. And let's make sure that alignment is there, and it's not quite there. As you can see, one space for moving something, even with the arrow keys, doesn't always work perfectly. Now they're off again. See that? Oh, Adobe. It's very close. I think when I place it in here, it will be fine. So I'm just going to highlight these, shift click off of this, and just move them into place to test them on the actual area where they're going to be used. I think they'll look fine down there. So that's enough of a test. I'm going to actually place these in here now. So I'm going to group these here now. Command C, Command V, and place a few of these in here. Let's make sure that we have the right alignment. Looks good. Select both of these now, so I can copy both. So now I'm copying a set of two. Just saves you more work. If you know that you're going to copy one of these pieces, you're going to extend that pattern out quite a bit. Then keep copying as you make the pattern bigger, so that way it eventually reduces your workload, basically. And now we have those two. Put these in place. It looks about right. Where I have these grouped, I can just click on each one of these sets. Now I could group this as well if I wanted to. Group, Command CV, and of course now it creates a duplicate of that set, right? I think that's about right there. And I think I'll try to copy all of these now. And I'll have a space in the middle here. About right there. And I'm going to rotate these just to give it a different look. Let's see how that looks. It's starting to look like kind of an old school boombox in a way. I'm just going to move this down a little bit. I have to move that back up. Of course, sometimes there's always adjustments that need to be made. As you can see, there's a couple here sticking up. What I could always do is, for example, click this section here, just move it down one. But as you can see, it altered the angle of that. So what I did, I used the sub-select tool to select that one piece, because it's all grouped, right? I used the sub-select tool to select that one piece of this group, and then I used the main move tool to move down just that one piece, and it's not going to move properly. In this case, to move that section, sometimes you might need to actually ungroup to adjust it, okay? I'm just going to select that one anchor point. Something like that, okay? And of course you can see there'd be a whole bunch of little adjustments here to make it exactly perfect, but we're not going to do that right now. As you can see from this viewpoint though, this is probably as big as you'd use the this particular graphic. It does look very good. And we'll click delete on that. So now maybe some inside buttons here. Let's see. I think what we'll do is we'll actually make a cassette area, okay? So I'm going to go back to our rounded rectangle tool. Before I do that, I'm just going to do a checklist on some of the items here that we want to go over. I'm just going to double check here. One thing I haven't shown you yet is how to make extra anchor points, okay? And I'll do this as we go through our cassette area here. So I'm actually on my rounded rectangular tool, and I'm going to create a cassette area right here. And before I do anything with that, I'm just going to kind of center it in the middle here and extend it down a bit. And I'm going to click on these anchor points, okay? This one, shift click down to this one and smooth them over. So I went 15 spaces there. So I'm going to do the same with this side. Click here, shift click down to my other anchor. And a consistent amount of spaces. Okay, so that's looking about the shape of how a cassette should look. I'm also going to create a copy of this. Command CV. And I'm just going to make a smaller copy of this to place inside. I'm just going to make it smaller like this. I'm not going to use well, I might leave a stroke on there, but I know this color needs to be lighter, so I'm going to go with, say, this color. And the purpose is going to be the inside of our tape, basically. Let's just see how that looks. Let's move it down a little bit more. Make this area a little bit smaller. And let's go with a couple small circles here for the inside of the tape. So again, I'm going to create a copy of this because I'm going to make a basically a scrap piece and bring it up here. That way I can see how these circles are going to look here. Actually, that's the wrong scrap piece. Delete that. We want this piece. And let's bring it up here. And I'm going to create a circle inside that. Excuse me. Like so. This is going to have a light color to it. The stroke is going to be a dark gray. Let's go with the darkest gray here for the stroke. That will be visible enough. I'm going to create a shape inside this here now, kind of for the inner wheel part of that tape. It's kind of like, it looks something like a crosshairs, so I'm going to create that here. Now, to create a straight line, you can use this line segment here, okay? This is the line segment tool. So you can just click here. Actually, just 1 second. You can click and drag, and it will draw the shape that you need it to be, okay? Now, I could line this up inside the circle, but I'm just going to make it small enough that I know it will fit in there. I'm just going to zoom in a bit here. And zoom in again. Now, the difficulty in Illustrator is that as you start to deal with some really small elements, they do get hard to move around the screen, because even though they're so small, they still have all these handles and indicators and anchors on them that make it difficult to select them. So for this, I'm going to need to zoom in really closely here, as you can see. Now I can move it. See that? I'm just going to move it over here. And over here. And just so I can get close enough to where it needs to be. It's getting closer. As you can see, this is one consideration when deciding where to create some of the smaller elements. You don't want them too far away from your main design. Okay? And there we go. That's centered there. Let's just zoom out and see how this looks. And I am going to make that a gray color, just so it's not so apparent. Command C, V. And I'm going to rotate this now. And you can see it showing me 270. In this particular example, that means it's perpendicular to the first line. Okay? And I'm going to have to zoom in to kind of make this a little bit more accurate. And intersect. Let's see how this looks now. That's the way that I'd like the inside of the tape to look. Now I'm going to delete this outer part, highlight this, group it, Command G, and bring it onto our cassette. And that's about in the right area that I'd want it to be. And I'm not going to move that at all. Command C, Command V, and let's make sure it's centered here. And let's just do some checks on it. Okay, it's centered crossways. Now I don't have an alignment strategy for it going from the side here, but I could measure it out if need be. But it does look to be in exactly the right place that it needs to be. Let's zoom out one more and see how our boombox is looking. It's coming along. I think the last thing I'll do here, oh, one more thing that I didn't show you about adding anchor points, very important, okay? Let's say that we wanted to make this bottom line of this cassette tape area kind of incave in, okay? So to incave. What I'm going to do here is up where the pen tool is, I'm going to click and drag this and highlight down, and you'll see this option for add anchor point, okay? I'm going to add one anchor point right here, and I'm just going to make an alignment strategy and intersect with this crosshairs right here. One anchor point there, and let's go over here, and I'm going to create another anchor point right there. Now, what I'm going to do here now is hover over the two that I just created. Creating anchor points and adding more anchor points allows you flexibility in how you can manipulate a shape, okay? If I move these both in there now, notice it kind of gives a different shape to this. Notice now that our cassette tape is starting to turn into the shape of maybe a game controller. Can you see that? So I'm not going to go that drastic. I mean, I can move it all the way in if I wanted to. And it would start to begin to take on the shape of definitely a game controller. I'm just going to go about right there. And I'm just going to keep track of the spaces that I had there now. That's straight across. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And I'm going to do the same thing on the top here. Add an anchor point right here. Make sure it's lined up with the crosshairs. And the only reason I'm saying the crosshairs here is just straight an alignment strategy, but basically. Select those two new anchor points. And same thing, 1, 2, 3, 4, down. Now definitely change the shape of the cassette player, but you know what, it looks okay. If we wanted to match up the inside of this now, I could actually add anchor points maybe on this part. Now I don't know why it's not lining up straight here. Right. Just be 1 second here. Just going to make sure that I'm not highlighted on anything. Let's add an anchor point. Right. It's not letting me add that for some reason. Can I add one anchor point here? And one right there. Select both of these anchor points now and just move those in a little bit, just to stay consistent with what we did there at the top. And it's got kind of an abstract feel to it, something similar to a modern look here. We could do the same thing at the bottom base of our boombox as well. Could add anchor points down here. Maybe one of these anchor points could line up with, say, the edge of this circle right here, right there, and the edge of this circle right here. Select both of those anchor points, that one right there, and shift click on that one right there, and just move these up a little bit. Something like that. So now it's giving it a little bit of aerodynamics. And it's always good to do a check just to make sure things are still lined up. Okay, and the last thing I'm going to do here now is create some buttons. I don't have a strong idea for these buttons yet. Let's see. I'm going to use the rounded rectangle tool. And I'll just start up here. And I'm just going to adjust the bevel here. 8. And 8. So I'm going to zoom out to see how that might look. And the color is going to be a shade of that gray. Let's go with that. Actually, let's go with that. Let's take the stroke off. Or I'm actually might add that the light gray color for the stroke. And I'm just going to bring it down in here to test it out, see how it looks. I think I'm going to make the fill color a little bit lighter than that. A little bit smaller. And that's looking about right there now. Just copied it. And copy and paste it again. Line these up a little bit. Just gonna see where these are compared to the edge of the cassette player. And it's about even from side to side here. And just to add a little bit to it, I'm going to group these and make a second copy of these. And make these a little bit smaller. And I'm going to vary the color slightly on one of the inner buttons. Something like that. And it's just a little bit off here. That's about centered there now. I'll move both of these sets down a little bit. And the last thing I'm going to do here, I'm just going to move all this up. Give myself a little bit of space on the bottom here. I'll make a copy of the base. Move it behind. Take off the stroke, and the fill color is going to be that dark gray color. Excuse me. And just let it stand as maybe give it a bit of a dimension down the back. That's about where it needs to be right there. And there's a very basic example of a boombox. Thank you very much.